Well, hey, evtv, here's Anne Kloppenborg with that weekly evtv Amsterdam update. I'm back, and it is time to do some more data-driven research. I have been showing you how to ride around in a small red speedboat, having a lot of fun, occasionally going out for water skiing events or taking people for flyby drives. But Jack and Brian have let us know that evtv is a techie show, and we need some techie data. That means that I should be going out with these vehicles that we're making out on the water and making some data as for power draw at RPM and speed levels. So I had gone out with the Delta on a early morning, and we had a new prop to test. The old prop gave us a sweet spot around 40 kilometers an hour at only 125 amps. At, let's say, 150 volts, giving us about 40 kilometers an hour for 18.5 kilowatt of draw. That prop went to America to be fitted on Jack's new Delta, or the next new Delta if our insurance will finally come through. They sure like to take their time. But anyways, that meant we had opportunity to test another prop, one that could be more efficient, could be more fun, as it has 4 blades and is definitely bigger. So it was very torquey, I would believe. It had a lot of blade surface to push water away. Maybe so much surface that it also drags in the water at certain speeds. Well, the only way to really know is to take her out into the wet and do some data gathering. So without further ado, I give you full-on speed testing, data gathering, Delta style. Slight warning, data gathering takes a long time. So it's going to be like watching paint dry. It takes a long time. But now we're watching paint dry in a speedboat on the water. So let's do it. Okay. Let's see. Okie doke. Well, here we are on a Monday morning. I will look ridiculous in the name of science and action footage. Let's get our log file started here. We'll call it new prop 1. We'll save that baby. She's monitoring. I'll set our meter to amps. I've got the mile per hour right here. Let's see if I can clean that up just a little bit for you. So the idea is that we test the new prop and we get some data on speeds and power usage at those speeds. So let's see what we can do. So, here we start. Let's see, check that we have our outputs. Because I want to be able to see RPMs. Here we go. RPM holding at 966. Amps at 7 amps. Do a quick voltage check. 158 volts. 7 amps equals. Hey, I just lost my GPS. Here we go. So we're doing 4 miles an hour at 7 amps, and that's about 950 RPM. Here we go, guys. I'm looking serious just as I'm trying to collect all this data, but this is pretty cool. Take a quick gander in the engine bay area just to make sure. Okay. Kiddo, everything's still running. Let's do one more stop start of the log file. Kiddo. Well, let's get some acceleration feeling on this baby, yeah? Doing 19 miles an hour at 100 RPM. Two and a half thousand RPM. Yeah, this mile an hour thing's not going to work for me. So I need to know what 40 kilometers an hour is. Speed unit, kilometer per hour. Thank you. So let's find that 40 kilometer an hour sweet spot and see what the efficiency is with this prop. Doing a steady 40 at 148 amp, 40 at 145 amp, and that is 3,500 RPM. 3,500 RPM at 170 amp and 40 kilometers an hour. So, do a very quick check of temperatures. Controller temperature at 26 and motor temperature 26, controller temperature 26. They're all still just about at ambient. Quick check on the engine bay. So good. Okay, let's get a little acceleration test here. See what that's like. So, 0 to 60 in, how fast can we do it? Are you still running? Yes, you are. Okay. Are you still running? Yes, you are. That was rather ridiculous. Cool. Can I get the temperatures up a bit? Yeah, 27, 28. Okie doke. Now let's see if we can get any kind of stable readings for speed here. So, come down a bit. 7 km/h at 7 amps and 990 RPM. So 7 amps, 6 km/h at, let's pop it up just a bit. So here we go. 7 km/h at 8 amps and 1000 RPM. 7 km/h at 8 amps and 1000 RPM. (1500 RPM) equals 9 km/h and 21 amps. So 9 km/h, 21 amps, and 1500 RPM. 1500 RPM, 9 km/h, 21 amps. (2000 RPM is just ridiculous. Your nose is all up. You're doing 10 km/h at 60 amps. So let's get the first planing speed RPMs. Go around a bit. Doing 33 km at 123 amps and 3000 RPM. 3000 RPM, 30 km/h, 120 amps. This is about my minimal planing speed, I would think. My nose is still up a bit, I'm still hanging back. Not very efficient, but I'm doing 115 amps, 28 kilometers, and 3000 RPM. RPM, I'm doing 40 km/h at 165, 162 amps. Not quite as good as with the other prop actually. I was seeing about 125 amps at 40 km/h. Now I'm seeing about 160. So it's, and at this is 3300 RPM. Not quite right. Turn around. Kilometer at 140 amps and 3300 RPM. So 3300 RPM is 33 km/h and 140 amps. Now it's about 40 km/h, 180 amps. 3600 RPM. So 3600 RPM, 40 km/h, 160 amps. 35 kilometer an hour at 140 amps, pretty steady. And that's 3,400 RPM. .35 kilometer an hour, 148 amps, and 3,500 RPM. It's still on. Yay! There we go. So we got to be really hitting that 40 mark to do it in an hour with the channel crossing. Let's get it up to 40 a bit. RPM. My controller temperature's up to 30, my motor temperature's up to 43 degrees. Amp hours out. Is just too close to the hull, and it's causing a lot of extra resonance. So back to about an hour, 160 amps, and 3,500 RPM. So at these speeds, the motor will be heating up a bit. It really likes to go a little faster. 56, 600 amps, 5,500 RPM. 650 amps, 6,000 RPM. Okay. Take another little look and see in the engine bay. See how we're doing back there. Yeah, that's still pretty good. The motor's warming up. That part's not too bad, really. So we're seeing controller temperatures of 28 degree. Where's the other controller? Let's see. Motor at 59, controller at 27. Oh, of course, we're just seeing one of the two controllers. That's okay. So let's try another acceleration run then. We still have our log going. Fun to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a little electric speedboat. What do you expect? So we're going straight. So we're going straight, and this is 3, 2, 1. Prop really wants to do about 35 kilometers an hour, and that equals 130 amps. It's a great 1C draw. That's 130 amp draw at 35 kilometers an hour, doing 3,300 RPM. It's pretty much the stable cruise speed. I'd like to go a little faster. Like 30, 36, 140, and 3,500 RPM. So 36 at 140, 3,500 RPM. Cool to get a little spat on the buoy. See if I can catch that on camera. I think this top is just a little bigger, so it's up front, and it's just giving me a lot of resonation off the bottom of my hull. It's making a lot of noise. Probably not as efficient either. Taking 155 amps here for 38 kilometers an hour at 3,600 RPM. Kilometer an hour, 150 amps. $3,500 RPM. an hour at 3,500 RPM. Problem we do have is that even though this is 30 kilowatts, if I do it correctly, probably not. The problem is that we still have a climbing motor temperature, so it's not quite a stable temp. 60, 61. Not climbing real fast, but it is climbing. Controllers are holding at under 30, so that's fine. So this is just a little short of the speed I need to do to cross the channel in under an hour. And it's just a little high for the amps I want it to be. So the move from a 3-blade to a 4-blade prop, it was a temporary move, and we're going to move back for that distance attempt, because this just isn't quite cutting it. The acceleration is a lot of fun though. It's kind of like a bucking bronco. Let's take it just up to 40. Vibration coming into the boat. Probably the prop wash is being hit up too much. So yeah, not quite what we're looking for here. enough for crossing under an hour, but I'm doing it at 169 amps. I had that down to about 130 amps before with the other prop, so that was definitely a lot better. Also, I'm doing only 3,700 RPM, and my motor temperature's climbing. It's up to 70 now. I'm gonna take it back in. But, that just won't quite cut it for crossing the channel. Right now we're doing a steady 39 kilometer an hour, 170 amps, 148 volts, and 3,700 RPM. Sure is a pretty morning out here, the Eiberg Bay. The controller temp is still under 30, so the cooling system's working perfectly. Motor temperature's going up. We're just not making enough RPM to get enough air through and keep it cool. It's good on that front. I'll do a couple more acceleration deals. Halfway through the pack. Let's see if the motor still goes up. Okay, that's it for take one. Okay, here's our second take. We'll call it log number 3. I want to do a few more quick accels, get those on the log, and do a bit more at around that 40 kilometer an hour mark. Make sure that I know what my usage is at that speed. Let's start straightening her out. There we go, she's got some power. Felt a few little minor cutbacks there. Not sure if we're hitting a temp issue. Doesn't look like it. 73 on the motor. So if it's not a temp issue, maybe they're overspeed issues. That could be. I've got it limited to, I think, 5,500 on the motor side so that we don't overspin our prop. Maybe sometimes we're hitting some air and it needs to cut back to not overspeed. It's not an undervolt issue. Going home. So guys, this was Delta testing on Monday morning, the 1st of September 2014. She's definitely a wild little rodeo beast, and a 4-blade prop at 12.5 inch diameter. A little bit much, guys. We're going back to a 12 inch 3-blader, and that'll be a lot better. Check you back at the studio. There you have it, guys. Data. I took all the data points that I was shouting out at you while we were on the water, and I stuck them in a little Excel sheet. And then I sorted them for speed. So now I have a column for speed, RPMs, and amps, and here and there at some voltages. I'm not that good yet at making graphs out of these data, so I will send them on to evtv and, of course, make them available along with the log files from the controller to anybody that would want to do some further research. What's the broad gist of it, though? A 4-blade prop, not as efficient as a 3-blade prop, not in my boat anyway, at our weights and our target speeds. We were doing about 7 kilometers an hour around 1,000 RPM at about 8 amps draw. So that's 1,000 RPM, 7 kilometers an hour at 8 amps draw. Going up to 1,500 RPM, so spinning the prop half as fast, only netted us 2 more kilometers an hour at 9 kilometers an hour, and 21 amps. So we're going up almost threefold in amps for only half the extra RPMs and only a third extra speed. So there's some nonlinear exponential kind of power increase over not so much speed increase going on there. Then at 2,000 RPMs, I was already drawing 60 amps, so 3 times as much amps again for only 500 extra RPMs, and going only about 11 kilometers an hour. So this is that point where we're pushing the front of the boat just up into the air and really not making any speed and just kind of strutting around our stuff at very inefficient levels. Once we're over the hump, though, at 2,500 RPM, we're doing 100 amps for 30 kilometers an hour. So here we see we have a big speed increase from 10 to 30 kilometers an hour for only about 500 extra RPMs. And it took us about 40 extra amps going from 60 to 100. Anyways, this is not going to seem very coherent, so that's why we have the data sheet, and I should have some figures up to the left or right of me. Don't know where I'm going to stick them yet. Then going up towards 3,000 RPMs, we're doing 33 kilometers an hour from 30, so we're only doing a slight increase in speed, and we're going from 100 to 123 amps, so it's costing us 1/5 extra power for only 1/10 extra speed. Then, now we're getting up to my kind of speeds, 40 kilometers an hour at 3,500 RPMs and 145 amp draw. So in this area, I have a few data points at 3,500 RPM at 150 amps, doing 37 kilometers an hour. So basically at this level, we're doing between 22.5 and 25 kilowatt draw for about 40 kilometer an hour. Remember, on the three-blade prop, I was doing only about 18.5 kilowatt for the same 40 kilometer an hour, and now it's taking me between 22 and 25 kilowatt. So that's the decrease in efficiency with this prop. Probably not all due to the four-blade, largely, I think, but also this four-blader was a little bigger. Little bigger means it's a little close to the boat, and I started to hear a lot of that old resonance again that was coming from the prop just being so close to the bottom of the boat that the prop wash was just coming up against it and creating noise. And I think noise is, an indication of something not going to speed, but it's going to sound and vibrations in my case. Then our max speed, around 6,000 RPMs, costing about 600 to 650 amps, can't do that very long, was about 56 to 59 kilometers an hour. The three-blade prop was getting me there at about 61 kilometers an hour, so it's a little faster, not that much, just a little, but at some lower amp levels. I was doing about 450 to 500 amps in that time. Once again, I'll stick up some of these figures if I can, and I will make this Excel sheet available to all of y'all and EVTV for further study and enlightenment. One other part of trying to get some hard data on the wet surface is that, as you saw, I was going back and forth, and at the same RPM, I could do some wildly different amps. And at the same speeds, I could be doing some different RPMs. The amount of variation that you get with the currents, the wind, maybe if I'm accelerating or decelerating, it's kind of hard to get long pieces of stable data out there on the water, in part because, the water is a fluid dynamic kind of place. Also because, I'm going that fast in a small boat with a limited amount of battery. So it's not like I have hours and hours of rolling time to get fixed data points. I'm trying, but as you saw, it was quite a juggle getting all my data in and not killing myself in the process. I do hope you enjoyed watching paint dry with Anne Kloppenborg of evtv.eu this week. And I'll be sure to start adding on data points, not only for the new three-blade prop that we have since put on the Delta, but of course also for our outboard with the beer cooler battery and for our Joni with the warp motor setup and old Winston lithium yttrium batteries. On the Joni, I don't quite think we'll be doing 60 kilometers an hour with 5,000 kilos of metal around us, but we should definitely get RPM versus volts and speed draw ratings. So, what else did I have going on this week? Well, a lot, but after about 45 minutes of footage, I'll have to boot that out to next week. We've got a lot of Jeep CJ5 updates for you, and we have one little visitor that came by this week, and I thought I'd show you that as well. Well, hey guys, we're here with another EvCon veteran. This seems to be Steve West. I just got a lot of New Zealand guys coming up. What brought you here, and does it have anything to do with the shiny new Tesla?
Yeah, I'm here. For those of you that saw me at EvCon, I haven't got home yet. No. I'm still traveling.
You weary traveler.
This was one of the purposes of my trip was to pick up my brand new P85 Plus Model S, which I needed to collect from Tilburg, and I figured if I was coming all the way to the Netherlands, how could I do that and not just pop in and visit Anna?
Absolutely.
So here we are, picking up a bit of charge while I'm here.
Very cool.
And planning my rapid drive back to the UK.
Sure.
I've got a ferry to catch.
Mm-hmm. And she'll be shipped from England to...
Yeah.
Okay.
Southampton is the port that the car is going to leave from.
And you'll be the first Model S in New Zealand by at least a year or something?
Oh, at least, yeah. And I may even be the first in all of Australasia.
Aha.
Tesla are not committing to any particular date that they're going to ship their first Model S to Australia.
Yeah. Well, fanboy and the low-hanging fruit, as Jack seems to say. You must have been right down there at knee level, fruit-wise, for the EV mind. Any self-built EVs in your near future, or buying Nicks?
Oh, well, I did my first conversion back in 2008. Okay. It was a Toyota MR2 Spider that I put a load of ThunderSky lithium cells into, warp 9 control motor, and
install it on.
No, this was pre-Soliton. This is
Pre-Soliton.
2008, so
Right.
that was the Zilla.
The Zilla.
Yeah,
at the time,
so
yeah.
the Z1K.
Sure. Is it
And-
still driving?
Well, no, it's a
a shop
project
car.
that's
Yeah.
in pieces. It's all over my garage floor. So, one of these days, I don't think I'm ever going to put it back together. I
Sure.
think it's probably worth more as parts
Yeah.
than as a complete car. So,
So you got a pack that can do something.
I got a pack that could do something.
Maybe a house pack.
Yeah.
Try some DC to DC charging.
I'm
That'd
sure
be
I'll find
fun.
a use for it.
Very cool. Well, Steve West was here, and we're going to send him off. Make sure he catches that boat. But anybody else, EvCon veterans, you're welcome. See you later, guys. There's Steve West and his shiny red new Tesla. I'm sure that Tesla is now maybe already nearing clearing Cape of Good Hope, the south of Africa. Would it be going around that way? Well, maybe not. Does it go around through the Panama Canal to New Zealand? I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into my shipping lanes from Southampton to New Zealand. Might be doing a Panama Canal. It might be doing a Cape of Good Hope. But either way, it should be on its way to New Zealand, where Steve resides and is back home after his long trips around the world. And he should be the first one taking delivery of such a shiny red Tesla, or any Tesla really, out there on the Model S front, at least. I'm sure he'll be a very happy chappy. Definitely a proof that the low-hanging fruit, the guys that love the OEM EVs, might also be our EvCon kind of guys. So whether you rock it OEM style or you drive it your way, at least we got the peoples in the EVs, and that's a great thing. Anyways, enough talky talk from Anna Kloppenborg, and I hope to see you all next week. You better be building. Later.